Hi, it's Kathy Adams Clark, and welcome to Processing in Adobe Camera Raw. I am going to process one photograph all the way through in Adobe Camera Raw and show you how it works. Then we're going to come back, and in another lesson I'm going to show you how to process multiple photographs in Adobe Camera Raw. We're going to now open this photograph, and we opened it in a previous lesson when we set our bridge up. If you're using JPEG, remember that you simply right-click and say Open with Camera Raw. If you're shooting in RAW, this is a CR2, so it's a Canon RAW, then we're going to double-click, and then that opens Adobe Camera Raw. So now we're in Adobe Camera Raw, and the previous changes that I made to the photograph in the previous lesson are all set inside the software, so they still are maintained. I want to show you a cool thing about shooting in Adobe Camera Raw though, is that I can always push that default button right there, and when I click the default button it takes the photo back to what came out of the camera, minus any crops, of course, because we've already done that in a previous lesson, but it took the processing back to what I had in originally coming out of the camera. So with this photograph, I need to, first of all, look at my histogram, and my histogram shows me that there's a teeny weeny spike right there on that white side. That is this area in here where we have blown out highlights. It's too small to worry about, so I'm not going to worry about it. There are some black areas though with no detail in it. That's that blue area that's showing up right down there. And then that's right here in this spike on my black side. So I'm going to take my black slider and I'm going to move my slider until I get rid of those black areas, blocked out blacks, but they're showing as blues. And now they're gone. So now I have detail down in this shadow. Everything that I do from now on is just strictly based on my own personal taste of processing this photograph. I could add some contrast if I would like to, so I could move this slider up and back to see whether I like a little bit more contrast. It looks pretty good to me. I could also move this slider in my highlights to see if I could get rid of some of that area around that street light, that big street light. You know what? I got rid of it, not bad. But you notice my photo looks a little on the dark side. So let's pull out the shadows, just a hair. Once again, this is all your personal taste and how you want your photo to look. I don't have any white areas that I really want to bring out, but if you want to see what happens with the slider, then just move it around and see what happens, because this is personal taste. Your exposure is set by that little corner of your histogram. Your blacks are set by that little corner, but all this other stuff is your personal taste and how you want your photograph to look. Now I notice, if I'm going to magnify this so you can see it too, but I notice right up here in this area of the photograph that I have some little tiny marks caused by dust on my sensor. My sensor obviously needs cleaning. So I'm going to go to this spot removal tool right here. I'm going to go to clone, and I'm going to give it just a very small circle. So as I move my radius, it gives me a very small circle, and I'm going to make that just a slight bit tinier. I'm going to click on those little spots, and when I click on them, you have to watch it. The software is finding a place in the sky or on the photograph that it thinks looks just like it. It gives you the same colors, the same tones. And so you have to kind of watch where the software is choosing. Watch this one. Click, and then the software chooses where it wants to use the patch. And then click, and you'll notice the software chose where to use the patch. I'm going to kind of try to stay in the same region, especially since we're dealing with the sky. The nice thing about this little clone tool is that it is adding exactly the same textures as that area that is being highlighted by that little green circle. So if this were bird feathers, or if this were the building, let me show you what happens on the building just so you can see it. Watch. See, I just cut off part of that building. But if I move it over here, then it adds sky. So we don't want to do that one at all. That's not one that we want to do. And so I could go in on this one and move it over, say, to here. And then that gets rid of that little mistake that I just made. If I don't like what I did, then I can simply do a clear all. And then when I want to see my photo back full size again, then all I have to do right down here is click this, and it goes into fit in view. And then all these little circles are where I've made my clone stamps. I can always click show overlay, and then they disappear, so I don't have to deal with them anymore. You know, so I got a couple of little more spots in there that I can do. Otherwise, my photo is pretty much processed to my liking right now. I'm going to click back on my zoom tool, and that takes me back to all of my other possible tools that I can use. And as I showed you in that previous lesson, I've got a tool here, 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 and here. So there's lots of tools back here. In Photoshop, you don't have to use every tool on every photograph. If you used every tool on every photograph, you'd never have any time to enjoy the photograph. And if you used every tool on every photograph, it probably isn't that good of a photograph. So for right now, this is to my liking. I might come in and do a little tweaking when we're not online on, again, some of those little black spots. But otherwise, the photograph is pretty much to my liking. So I'm going to click Done. And when I click Done, my photograph goes back into its place in Adobe Bridge, and now I'm ready to work on some more photographs. I'll come back in another lesson and show you how to work on 2 or more photographs at the exact same time to save time. Thanks very much for joining me. I'm Kathy Adams Clark.